Do you have a problem in your relationship? Or do you have a serious problem in your relationship? I want you to really think about that because there are some problems that all couples experience. All couples have issues, all couples have challenges. However, all couples don't have serious problems. So I want you to ask yourself whether or not you feel that you do, because I'm about to give you 7 signs, 7 indications that you do have a serious emotional disconnection problem on your hand. Let's get into this.
Oh, I'm just here to check on you. Are you okay? Describe it in words, you know what to say.
Not every issue, not every conversation that has challenges or problems affects the emotional bond within the relationship. Sometimes those types of issues and disagreements, they need to be had. Those difficult conversations, they need to be had with each other. However, each person does a wonderful job in making sure that those conversations don't allow their feelings or their emotions to impact the relationship, the bond, the connection between the two of them. That's really important. If you ever have a disagreement, if you and the person you're with are not seeing eye to eye because you see it one way and they see it a different way, yes, you have a responsibility to be able to communicate effectively, listen effectively, but you also want to make sure that you put up a defense to protect the relationship, to protect the person that you're with, so that even though you have a disagreement, even though you may not see eye to eye, you still appreciate, you still value, and you still love the person that you're with. Because the moment you let problems and issues and disagreements impact the bond, the emotional connection in your relationship, oh, you have a serious problem on your hand. And here are those 7 signs. I'm going to give you each one at a time that indicates that, yes, you have a serious problem with your relationship. And before I start with the first one, I want you to think about this. How often do you change the oil in your vehicle? Like, how often do you get a tune up on your vehicle? Do you change your oil every 3 months, maybe every 6 months? That's a good thing. Because if you don't change the oil, what's going to happen? You know the damage to your engine will be catastrophic. And what about the tune-up? Every 3 years, maybe every 5 years? Because even the best of vehicles can get out of alignment or out of tune. And a tune-up ensures that the car, the engine is running the best way possible. It's performing the best way possible. That's only capable when you're able to do a tune-up from time to time to make sure everything is running smoothly. It's the same thing with relationships. If you ever watch my videos, I liken the emotional bond or the emotional connection to the engine of the relationship. It is what makes it go. It's what makes it move forward. It is what makes it last. And the stronger that bond is, the healthier the engine is of your relationship is, so to speak, the better chance you have of having a long-lasting, successful relationship. However, again, there are some serious indicators that will prove to you or show you that you have a serious problem with the emotional connection or the bond in your relationship. Let's talk about the very first one. The first one is they talk to you less than what they used to. And even when they talk to you, it's only surface level conversation. Think back to when you first met the person you're with. Think about those initial conversations, how much joy, passion, interest, and curiosity existed when you first met them. Do you have that same level of interest and curiosity in the person that you're with now? And do they have it with you? This can change over time. And if it does, this is a big indication that you have a problem, a potential problem with the emotional connection or bond within your relationship. Notice this: a partner who is emotionally disconnecting often starts giving less of themselves in the conversation. They may still answer your questions, and that's why it's so confusing, because you could be sitting there talking with them. Sometimes you can be laughing with them, and sometimes that conversation can be lasting all day. However, this conversation may still only be about daily tasks, the schedules, the kids, the bills, the errands, and things like that. However, there's no warmth. There's no openness, there's no curiosity, and there's no emotional depth in the conversation because the emotional depth has begun to fade. It starts to feel like you are talking about life, and that has to be done, obviously, in the relationship, but you're no longer talking about sharing the life together. But when that happens, that's the number one indicator that you have a serious problem going on with the emotional connection of your relationship. I want you to ask yourself this question. Has the conversation changed in quality, not just in quantity? This question will help you to stop focusing only on whether they're talking, and you'll start focusing on how you and the person that you're with, how you are talking with one another. The second area or indicator that you can have an emotional weakness or crack in the bond of your relationship is the person seems to be less interested in having a closeness with you. Maybe you had this strong closeness in the beginning, and it was apparent. You were holding hands, you were hugging each other, you were doing so many things that show that you appreciated being in that person's environment within their space, so to speak, because you really enjoyed their company and they enjoyed your company as well. But notice this thought. This can show up emotionally. That is, they don't want any emotional closeness, they don't want any physical closeness, or both. They may stop initiating affection. The more they feel distant, then having more quality time with you. Um, they may no longer seem eager to connect with you. They may no longer seem like they want to laugh or talk or even cuddle or be emotionally present. It's not always rejection in an obvious form. Sometimes it looks more like low effort or low energy or emotional absence. That's insane because if you're in a relationship with someone, I know you can't always be cuddly, holding hands and kissing each other all the time. However, when there's a crack in the emotional bond or the closeness, you will start to see that fade. You will start to see that less and less to where it almost seems robotic or mechanical or to where it even becomes non-existent. Because when you couple that with the fact that the conversation is surface level and there's no real depth to the conversation, and then you add to that the fact that there's no closeness whatsoever, that's another major indicator that you have a serious problem in the emotional bond within your relationship. The third indicator is they become more irritated, and they become more irritated very easily. Now, as I mentioned before, all couples have disagreements. All couples have arguments. Like nobody's perfect. And from time to time, yes, your partner is going to say something or do something that's going to irritate you. And you're going to do the same. You're different people, different personalities, different upbringing and experiences. And it's very difficult to bring two lives together. And even though many do so successfully, there's still going to be issues. There's still going to be things that's going to irritate the other person. However, when a person becomes easily irritated, that can indicate there's a serious problem happening behind the scenes or in the emotional connection or the bond of the relationship. Because usually if a person loves you and respects you and appreciates you, they're going to be patient with you. They're going to maintain self-control. They're going to exercise constraint because they don't want to damage the relationship. They love you, they respect you, and even though your partner may do something or even though you may do something, they're going to cover over that mistake or that problem. They're going to do so with love because that's how they feel about you. But when that emotional bond or that emotional connection starts to crack and weaken, oh, they get irritated a lot more easier than what they did before. When the emotional connection weakens, small interactions, not the big ones, but even the small ones, can start carrying more tension. Your partner may become shorter with you, less patient, more annoyed, or quicker to pull back. This does not always mean they hate you, or it doesn't mean they want to leave you immediately, but it can mean the emotional bond is under strain and they are feeling less open, less safe, and less engaged because they get more irritated much more easier than before. And that's not something you should ignore. Don't undermine or dismiss that. That could be a major indication that there is something wrong in your relationship. I want you to ask yourself this question. Start noticing whether the irritation, if it's becoming a pattern, not just a one time incident, but it's a pattern rather than reacting to each moment individually. Because again, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to irritate the other person. They're going to irritate us. But if it's a pattern all the time, every time something happens, they get irritated. That's a major indication that something is going on with the emotional bond or the connection in your relationship. The fourth indicator or sign that there's something wrong is the person doesn't open up anymore. When there's emotional closeness or an emotional bond, the person will open up their world to you. Not just their physical world, not just the material world, but their emotional world. Now, yes, there are some people who are introverted. There are some people who are shy. There are some people who don't communicate as openly, but nonetheless, if a person is emotionally close to you, you will get an openness from them. And when they stop opening up, this is one of the clearest signs of emotional disconnection. In other words, they have shut down or they're in the process of shutting down. When you see someone that has reduced emotional sharing, oh, you better open your eyes. You better pay attention because something is clearly wrong with the bond and the connection in the relationship. Your partner may stop telling you what they're feeling, what's bothering them, what they are thinking about, or what they are carrying eternally. They don't let you into their world. They don't let you on the inside. Everything is surface level at this point. And when you're in a relationship, it's easy because we're so busy in life. We have job, we have kids, we have so many things that we want to do. But when you come home or when you're talking on the telephone, there should be a portion of that conversation where you and the other person are opening up to each other to let them know how you're feeling, like what's really going on with you. And if that's not happening because they're not opening up to you, oh, that is a major sign. The previous three are also major, but this one is a huge one. So don't overlook this one. Don't undermine this one. Pay attention to whether or not the person that you're with, if they're opening up to you and sharing their world with you. And I want you to think about this. Instead of asking only, why won't they talk to me? Ask, when did emotional openness start decreasing? This will help you to look back at the timeline and maybe you can spot what caused it, what was going on in the relationship. Did you do something? Did they do something? Or was it a combination of both of you that caused that person to stop opening up emotionally? If you can identify that, you want to go in and correct that. Otherwise, that person will get further and further or further away in the emotional closeness or bond that you need to sustain the relationship. Number 5 is you feel like you are carrying the relationship all by yourself. Now, a relationship, obviously, it's a partnership. Both persons have to do their part. Both persons have to contribute into the relationship. Now, it's true that there may be instances that where one person may have to carry a lot of the weight or the full weight, but that goes back and forth. Both persons in the relationship brings talents and skills and education and wisdom and resources that can benefit the relationship. So it's totally okay if one person in certain instances is doing more than the other person, but that should not be the norm. Both persons should be doing their part and equally contributing whatever it takes to make the relationship work. However, if you start to feel that it's always you're always the one carrying the relationship. You're the one that's trying to initiate the conversation. You're the one that's paying the bill. You're the one that's cleaning up the house. You're the one that's doing everything to make the relationship move forward. Uh-oh, you have a serious problem on your hands. You may notice that you are the only one, again, initiating conversations, the only one that's initiating affection, the only one that's doing the check-ins, problem solving, and offering date ideas. When that happens, yeah, you got a serious problem. The previous one where I talked about, that's major. This one is equally major because when this becomes one-sided for too long, it often signals that the relationship is no longer being equally carried. It is no longer a partnership. It is no longer two people trying to make the relationship work. You are doing all the work. And it may seem for a certain amount of time that that's okay because, as I mentioned previously, from time to time, each person will carry the weight, the full share of the weight. But if you're not careful and if you're not mindful of it, you can get into this trap and think that, oh, I always do this. I'm always the one that's carrying the weight. However, you want to make sure you look at the emotional connection of the bond in the relationship. Here's something you can do. I want you to write down 3 recent examples of effort in your relationship. And when you write those down, ask yourself who initiated them, who sustained them, and who seemed emotionally present during those examples. This is going to help you to move from vague fear to a clear observation as to what is really happening in your relationship. Um, yeah, you don't want to carry the relationship by yourself. That is a clear sign that, again, there is something wrong or weakening in the emotional bond in your relationship. The sixth sign is when they are physically present. You're doing everything together. You're going out to dinner. You're taking care of the kids. You're going to the movies. You're going on trips. You're doing everything that makes it seem like everything's okay. Your family thinks everything okay. Your friends think that everything's okay. You even think that everything's okay. However, they're absent emotionally. You have to be able to tell when you're doing certain things with a person whether or not they are emotionally engaged as you are doing those various activities, because sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're not. And because we can get so wrapped up into the hustle of life, the routine of life, and because they're with us, we may think that everything is okay. But in some instances, no, it's not okay. Notice this. This is one of the most painful signs because it is so hard to explain. Again, your partner still comes home. They still sit next to you. They still go to bed next to you. You still go through all the routines, but the emotional present, it feels reduced. The connection feels harder to reach, and you may feel lonelier with them than you do by yourself. Isn't that crazy? You're in a relationship with someone, you're right next to them, you're doing certain things with them, and you feel lonely when you're with them because the other person is not giving you anything. They're not emotionally investing into the relationship. Again, I talk about how emotional bond or connection is the engine of the relationship. Another way to look at it is it's the gas of the vehicle. And without it, the car can't go anywhere. The relationship can't go anywhere because there's no emotional investment. And if you try to maintain a relationship only on fumes, the dates, going to the movies, going through the routine of life without having the emotional connection, those are the fumes. Your relationship is not going to go anywhere. And this is a big indication that there's a major problem in your relationship. I want you to think about this. Pay close attention to how you feel after spending time with the person that you're with. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel emotionally refreshed? Do you feel like you have a partner? Do you feel close to this person or do you feel alone? If you feel calmer, if you feel connected, you're good. But if you feel confused, lonely, or uncertain, yeah, you have a major problem in your relationship. The seventh and final sign that there's a problem in your relationship is your gut feeling. Is telling you that there's a problem. Now, by the way, sometimes we misdiagnose it. Sometimes we misunderstand it. Sometimes we don't have all the facts. And so our gut can get us in trouble, drawing conclusions or forming assumptions that are simply not true. You always want to make sure you have conversations with the person that you're with to make sure there are no misunderstandings, to make sure that your assumptions are right, to make sure that you and the other person are clearly aware of what is happening in the relationship and what is needed to fix the relationship if there is indeed an emotional connection problem. However, sometimes our guts get it right because we know how it used to feel with them when everything was perfect, when everything was right, when the bond was intact. And then when things start to pull away, if we've been aware, if we've been paying attention, if we've been emotionally invested into the relationship, we will know if something has changed. Now, by the way, life happens. People go through things, and somebody that you're involved with can't always be emotionally at their best. Let's first of all, let's say that. However, if there's a pattern of you have this feeling and it's every day, every week, every month, you have more of a gut feeling that something's off than everything's okay, then you got something going on here that you really need to look into. The only way that you can check to see if a car is functioning properly is to lift the hood up, have someone who is certified, who is knowledgeable and skilled to look at your the car to identify where the problem is. And when you're in a relationship, you have to lift the hood, so to speak. You have to check to see what's going on, because even when I'm driving my car, or if you're driving your car, can't you tell when something's wrong with it? Can't you feel that it's not performing the exact same way? And again, in the relationships, we should know when something's off. Don't let the routine of life, don't let the busyness of life cause you not to check the health of your relationship, because your gut can tell you that. You know, sometimes people dismiss this sign because it sounds too emotional or too subjective. But often, your body, your spirit notice a shift before your mind can explain it. Let me make sure we capture that. Your body and your spirit can notice the change in your relationship before your mind can explain it. So if you consistently feel like something is off, that matters. It doesn't prove everything, but it should not be ignored either. Here's something you can do. Do not jump straight from intuition to conclusion. That would be bad. I assume this. I'm accusing you of that. You don't care about me no more. I mean, you could be wrong. You could absolutely be wrong by misdiagnosing what's happening with the person that you're with. You want to diagnose it very carefully. You want to look for patterns. You want to move from intuition to observation, because once you observe and you see the patterns, then you'll have clarity. Once you have clarity, you'll know if the person is still emotionally invested or if they have emotionally checked out. I think it would be fair to say that if you care and you love a person, and if both of you feel that way, that you certainly want the relationship to work out and you want the relationship to last. I think most people that go into relationships, even though sometimes people live in this fantasy world, where some people think that everything's perfect, at some point people will eventually realize, the couples will certainly understand that problems happen in relationships. Problems are not the issues. What the issue is emotional disconnection. If that starts to happen, then you got a serious problem on your hand. The only way to be able to check whether or not that problem is truly serious, whether or not it can be fixed, is to look under the hood and check what is happening. I've given you 7 signs to look at. Apply this to your relationship, and hopefully you have a strong, healthy relationship where you are happy, fulfilled, and satisfied, as well as the other person that you're with. However, if these signs, one or multiple signs, exist in your relationships, I hate to say it, and I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not saying go and argue and have a fight or a deep discussion about ending the relationship. That is a decision that you have to make. But I will say this. If these signs exist in your relationship, then it's very likely you have an emotional connection problem. And emotional connection problems are very serious, because if they are not fixed, I'm going to ask a question and then I'm going to answer it. What do you think is going to happen to your relationship? It's going to come to an end.
Come to share your story. Tell it how it be. Nah, I'm